Today's panelists, we have an esteemed panelist coming back with us, one of our partners, and from Women Who Serve, and she has a great history of helping out veterans and helping women in general and veterans in general. But Diana Dennis is a U.S. Army veteran and a national advocate and activist on women veterans issues and lead administrator for the social media service Women Who Serve. She has with her Kathleen Hoffman, a U.S. Army veteran and national advocate, as well as an Oregon State Veteran Service Officer. I love Oregon. I went there to visit one time, and I'm in love with it. Today's discussion is going to center around veterans caregiver programs, Medicare Aide, and attendance death benefits. Okay, let's turn it over to Diana. Let's lead this way into this discussion, the very important issues you're bringing up.
Hi, I'm glad to hear your voice again. We decided to veer off from some of the other very specifically women-oriented things this month because of COVID-19 and what it's done in decimating so many families. We've had, with COVID-19 in the last year, we've had 10,571 veterans deaths, and 645 of those were in the last 2 weeks. Part of the problem is that in the best of times when everyone knows what's going on and everything's open and you can go and work with a county veteran service officer or make calls or walk into a Social Security office or out onto a military installation and go run into an office to ask questions and get things done. We just haven't had the benefit of that. During COVID, things have been locked up and locked down. Even the cemetery systems is still on partial funeral program elements. So we're just now starting to be able to get in there and have small groups and start getting a lot of these funerals done. And one of the things that happens is veterans of all ages, get out of the service and they talk to other veterans instead of finding out specifically, what the programs and policies and requirements are. And when it comes to something this serious as COVID and a whole bunch of deaths and already having service-connected issues, maybe dying in a VA hospital, all of those deaths that I just talked about occurred in VA facilities, whether it was a nursing home, a CBOC, or a hospital. And when you look at that, veterans talk to each other and they think that there's a whole lot of stuff in place that is just specific to them that will cover them on all this stuff. And that's why I called Kathleen and I said, I would really like you to talk about what happens under aid and attendance, usually a separate program under Social Security, and they have caregiver program in the Department of Veterans Affairs. But there are limitations to each of those, and then if we lose our veteran, then we're dealing with death benefits and death issues, and there's a lot of mystique and myth around what that includes. So I'm going to let Kathleen take off and start talking about what those different things are, what it means, and how folks can get help, because we got a lot of folks just making stuff up as they go, and we're in a very difficult situation with so many veterans' deaths. Kathleen, I'm so happy you were able to come on today.
Thank you for inviting me. The first thing that I wanted to talk about is COVID and death, and then I'll go to burial. A lot of people don't realize if a veteran goes to a hospital and it's said that they die from COVID, that the family loses the burial benefit. Say that previously they had bladder cancer or prostate cancer, which is an Agent Orange presumptive, and they were rated for it. If that is not on the death certificate and they say it's COVID, the family will not get the $2,000 burial. They will not receive DIC, which is survivor benefits, medical care. They just lost. So it's really important that the VSOs or the families know to talk to the burial home about the other health-related injuries that they have, so that they're on the death certificate as well, so the family does not lose out.
That's very important. I was under a misimpression, too. I thought 100% veterans got that death benefit automatically, and Katie set me straight. She said, that is not how it works. If it is not on the death certificate, that is not happening. And if it's not on the death certificate, it absolutely impacts death and indemnity, that DIC compensation benefit to a surviving spouse. And most veterans aren't aware of that. And that's scary to think that you're going to have that to help your family step forward and not have it be there.
You know, that's really an interesting and extremely critical point. So do you think that, you know, we have like a association of funeral directors in the Chicagoland area in Illinois, and do they need to be made aware of this? Because if anyone is a veteran and they do die, you know, regardless of the cause, but even especially with COVID, to make sure that they that disability certificate from the family goes to the funeral home.
Absolutely. You know, I live in a rural town, you know, where everybody has 60,000 horses and dogs, and I can honestly say that our funeral home, you know, we have one. He comes to me and he says, "I have a veteran. What do I need to tell the coroner to put on this certificate?" It just happens that my guy and I work really well together. You know, and that's just like, say you have somebody who dies of a cancer that's not Agent Orange or a condition that's not Gulf War syndrome, you know, and they don't write it down or they don't write down other issues. You say that they actually die because of the morphine in an OD, and if the person is rated for PTSD, you can say that morphine caused suicide, and then they will be rated, that the family will get the $2,000 and they'll get the DIC, the survivor benefits, because suicide is a secondary condition to PTSD. Even though the morphine was for a drug, the morphine still caused an OD. So it's kind of a play with the system to win what is right for the family.
Wow.
So Kathleen, when we are dealing with someone with a multitude, just stacked disabilities, that for whatever reason ends up in the hospital, is the objective to laundry list while they are in there with the physician so that it's in the record, everything that's wrong with them and all of the things that could come up. So if they give them a medication or if they prescribe a treatment that ends up not working out well for them and they succumb to whatever the condition is, that they show that.
Hello?
Oh, hello. Yeah, I think. Oh, she may have fallen off for a moment, but you can answer that question, and she'll be right back on.
No, I'm on. Yeah, I would write everything down. We have a lot of people, especially our older veterans, who have, 10, 11 conditions, and we write everything down. You don't want to leave any loopholes.
Oh, we don't. Yes, that's right. Yeah, so is it difficult to amend the death certificate once that's happened? I bet it is.
Coroners don't like to do it. They don't like to admit that they weren't listening to the family or they weren't in the loop. They don't like to admit it. I had one recently that was amended, and it was also a morphine. The man was Vietnam 3 times. He had esophagus cancer. Esophagus cancer is not Agent Orange, but yet respiratory and lung and all that other bronchi, all that other stuff is Agent Orange, but not esophagus. And so he ended up getting bone cancer. They didn't consider it multiple myeloma, which is also Agent Orange, even though multiple myeloma is bone cancer. So there's different things that can be written that can help the people, that it's not like with Agent Orange, that it's not a presumptive, but we could still get the benefit for the family. And the thing is like what Diana said, is like if you have PTSD and you blew your knee and you're 100%, say you're 100% for PTSD, you are not guaranteed the $2,000 burial. If you get hit by a car, your burial is going to be $300. And your family is not going to get DIC. Now, if you're collecting unemployability is where you can be 70% paid 100, 80% paid 100. And it's where the VA has said, we recognize that you are 70%, but you cannot hold a job. So if you have that condition, 10 years, married 10 years, it does not matter what you pass away from, even COVID, the VA will pay survivor benefits.
Oh, wow.
But unemployability is not the same as 100% scheduler. They're both to be paid 100%, but they are not the same. 100% scheduler means you can work. Unemployability means they don't want you to work.
Oh, boy. So, Diana, I think that goes to the heart of your question. If we have this, this thing is, we just, it's really sad though that people are not cognizant of this, because I feel, at the point where someone is actually going through this, first of all, the family with the COVID-19 is usually disconnected from the person who is in the who's hospitalized or an intensive care unit. And so they may not even be able to talk to the person about where are your papers, where are things that you need. And it seems like a tragic, accumulation of different issues that just make this impossible to contend with sometimes. And so what would you recommend that people do in general, even now, just to make sure that the families are aware that these documents are extremely important? We know about the DD 214, life doesn't go on without that. But go ahead.
If they have a burial plan, I tell people to have, like, in their safe or in their burial information, they have their DD Form 214 with their burial plan and their disability rating. Because their disability rating, that's itemized. In my county, I give my guys and my women a copy of their code sheet, and that code sheet breaks everything down without all the other 60,000 words. It just says like 50% PTSD, 50% TDI, 30% this. It just breaks it down without all of why we awarded and why we didn't award. So it makes your package a little cleaner. And so I would suggest that they have that together. And just like if they've been in anaphylaxis, those kind of things.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like, I did a seminar last Saturday, and one of the EMTs said to tape it to a cabinet. So like if somebody has to come to your house and say you haven't been well, then the EMTs, where's your medication list? Where is your like your code sheet or your DD Form 214, so somebody knows where to find this stuff. So it's kind of like have your kids or have your family know where that paperwork is. Because a lot of times too, if somebody passes away at home, the coroner comes to the house.
Oh, yes. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. And
so they have access to that paperwork. So, it's like, yes, we always think we're going to live forever. And honestly, I'm going to tell you, I did not make a plan myself until last year. I had a drunk driver take me off the road in the snow and ice, and it took them 2 hours to cut me out. I didn't have a plan until I climbed out of that truck, because I shouldn't have climbed out. So I now have a plan, and everybody knows where my plan is.
Wow, so, that's words of wisdom.
Yeah,
right.
Everybody just needs to start making a plan. But, I also didn't start thinking about COVID until I started hearing on TV, hundreds of people died in New York, and they're boxing them up, and they're putting them outside, and they're putting them in freezers, and I'm like, I bet their family doesn't know that they just lost their benefits.
Oh, my goodness. Wow.
And so that's why I went to our coroner, and I said, hey, if we have anybody in our county pass away from COVID, you really need to come see me.
Yeah, this is an alarm bell that people need to be listening to, And you're making me think I need to get my things in order when I go home, because
Right.
yeah, we don't know when we're promised to be here or not, and so we really have to prepare ourselves correctly, and that $2,000 survivor benefit could really help to stabilize a family that's in grief, over the loss of their loved one who's a veteran.
Most people don't pay in advance for cremation and burial. And if you're going to pay for a full burial, $2,000 isn't anything. Some places you might be able to get cremated for $800. The average is, $1,400 to $2,000. If you are a big man, I just had a guy who weighed like 350 pounds, and his burial was close to $3,000 because he was the cremation because he was so big. So people don't think about that. And the thing is you don't get reimbursed that as soon as you submit the documentation to the VA. If there is one box that's not checked, you're not going to get it for 6 months. If your VSO, your Veteran Service Officer, or whoever is helping you do it correctly, you can get it in 14 days.
Oh my, 14 days.
Yeah, if it's done correctly. And the thing is a lot of burial homes do the burial paperwork, because there's a form for burial benefit, and then there's a form for DIC, which is if you're the survivor. There's two different forms. So the burial benefit also asks, is it service-connected? So that's $2,000. Did they have a service-connected injury? That's $300. Are they a service member? That means they're going to get the flag and they're going to get the headstone. All the headstones are free. So headstone, plaque, and medallion are free. The flag, if you didn't get it from the burial home, you can take the DD Form 214 and the death certificate to the post office, and they will give you a flag.
Oh my goodness, that's
so.
Yeah.
So then, if a person passed away at a VA facility, or en route to a VA facility, en route to an outside clinic that the VA is paying for, because a lot of people use community care, then that burial benefit is $792. So I don't know where they got that number from, but
yeah, that's
so there's different numbers for different things. Obviously,
right.
The thing is like if they're married and the spouse is doing, the survivor listed on the burial benefit, they automatically, if there's a service-connected disability, send a $300 check. So if it becomes that they passed away, so say they had a service-connected disability, but they didn't die from a service-connected disability, that's $300. They automatically cut that check as soon as they get the paperwork. So they usually have that check within a week or 2 weeks. And if there's accrued benefits, say the veteran passed away on the 29th of the month, and January gets paid in February gets paid in March. So they passed away in February, and they're going to get paid in March. What will happen is with the spouse, they will pay the accrued benefits.
Okay, wow.
I'd like to make sure that we have both, because there's two things that you have to do upon death. You have to call Social Security, and there's also a Social Security benefit of $255. But you have to call 1-800-772-1213. And for those with service-connected disabilities that are registered in the DEERS system, the Defense Enrollment and Eligibility Reporting System, they need to call 1-800-538-9552 to make sure that the death is reported. So those are a couple of the areas that we need to be aware of as well. Kathleen has such a huge amount of information. It's amazing. And we just felt, and we barely touched the tip of this one. This is a huge issue.
Yeah, it really is. I'm so glad that you brought this to light, Diana, because this is tragic. To have veterans who sacrificed their lives and did things that we we are actually very at a point in time where we are benefiting from all these sacrifices made to wait to go to the time of their death and then not to grant them these benefits. because of people just not knowing that for a burial plan you should include the DD-214 and the disability rating form. This is valuable information, and for the families and the survivors of our veterans, who supported them as well.
And making sure everything that is involved in their treatment while they're in the hospital is on that death certificate. Anything that might contribute, because if it's on there, even if it was minor in contributing, it's contributing. They have to cover you.
Oh.
Even if it's a temporary disability, say somebody had hip surgery and it's service connected, and they granted it temporarily due to surgery, like an increase, you still want to bring up the surgery. Also, if it's a medication the VA prescribed and they went into anaphylaxis, you can also argue on the death certificate. So you say, like, I'm allergic to penicillin. So say I die from penicillin. That needs to be on the record, because if the VA gave it to me, they've got to pay for the burial benefit.
Wow. So the things I've learned, because the two of you always, every time I learn something, every time, Diana, you come on, and Kathleen, you have enlightened me. If I have my burial plan, I better have my DD-214 and my disability rating form included in that documentation, so my family doesn't have to search all over the place for these pieces of paper that can actually leave them in a better position. And I would rather do that, in passing on with my life.